Greetings Internet, Didier here, and welcome to another deck profile video that we're putting out for you. This time, it's Trunks again, and not Empowered Saiyan Trunks, but Oppressive Saiyan Trunks. Of course, I do believe that Empowered Trunks will be, and always be, the best form of Saiyan Trunks. However, being that it's frozen, Oppressive Trunks is a nice middle ground to that. It offers you some advantages and some great disadvantages in comparison to Empowered. However, in a heavy control meta, there is no mastery that can put on more pressure than Oppressive Mastery. So let's just scan over the list real quick. So as you can see, we're running the full sword package. We also have turning kicks in there, because why wouldn't you run turning kicks in Saiyan Trunks? We got those shattering blows. The bursts are in there for anti-anger. A single legendary strike because it's a great card. 3 spheres are needed in the meta. Menace for certain matchups. A full drill suite. And likewise, we have the single pregame and triple aggressive sword drill. So now, let's go over the attacks. So of course, I didn't really talk about the levels of Trunks that you'll be playing with, and the main reason for that is you're going to primarily be spending your time on level 1. You may jump to the level 2. The level 2 is really excellent to go to mid to late game, especially if you're playing against a black deck and you want to make sure you stop those defensive bursts. I don't really get to level 3 too much. It's a great level, don't get me wrong, but just this deck doesn't really generate the anger. If any deck has any form of anti-anger, they will stick you on 1, but that's okay. We're not really concerned about that, because this deck, the advantage that this deck generates is not by leveling, not by increasing your power level. It's by essentially tempo, the tempo of the Oppressive Mastery, and ending combat with things like Trunk Slam and Blinding Energy move. So starting off with the attacks here, bread and butter, we have 3 Saiyan Sword Strikes. These are excellent for you. I find myself getting these with aggressive sword drill pretty often. Because they're like a standard vanilla physical attack, they do AT plus 4, which is excellent, and so they just kind of help you set up for future combats. I don't find myself activating the Unstoppable Unpreventable too often. This deck can generate a few extra actions with things like Menace and Rescue, but because the Mastery is making your opponent skip plenty of actions, and we do other things in the deck to make them skip actions and end combat, the deck plays like a dodging in and out of combat, so you really don't, it's not like you trade action for action, so your opponent is generally going to have plenty of actions left by the time he actually gets a phase. So, but still really solid. Play this at 3. It's great to tutor with Dashing Sword and early game with Aggressive Sword Drill. And one of the best sword cards that you're going to be playing in this deck is the Trunks Sword Slash card. Excellent card. The 6 banish is immense and so important in the current metagame. Tons of personalities are rejuving from the discard pile. Tons of personalities are tutoring from the discard pile. This is just needed. This gets around us having to play things like Dev Blow. And it's a great card because not only does it do AT plus 4, it'll also be unpreventable with the aggressive sword drill. So you'll find yourself hitting this for 6 or 7 or maybe even 8 damage unpreventable, and I've often killed people with this card. Excellent card, never going down. The only thing, it does cost a stage, so you'll see that stage management is pretty important in this deck because there are a few things that cost stages. We have a lower power level, so any aggressive deck is going to be able to take advantage of that and maybe lock us to 0. The Mastery can generate you stages, and I often find myself using the 2-stage gain rather than the anger to keep myself at full, keep my power level in D, because Trunks is actually in D at the top 2 stages. So as long as you keep using the Oppressive Mastery to gain stages, the stage cost of this shouldn't be an issue. So moving on here, we have the greatest name card / greatest Trunks name card in the game, Trunks Knee Bash. This is the reason that Trunks is a tier 1 personality. not only can you use this card to banish and clear the board of your opponent, you can also clear things like Wall Breaker and Black Capture that have been attached to you. It's just such an excellent card. I can speak volumes about this card because it's tutorable by Aggressive Sword Drill. It's also tutorable by Dashing Sword Attack. You can find yourself doing this attack, 3, 4, maybe even 5 times per game. So facing an orange deck, don't worry about it. Facing one of those control red decks that push a lot of anger with things like Blaze and Destiny, don't worry about it. You have this in your pocket. And this will often be a call early if you're facing a control black deck because they know that, Saiyan's non-combat tech is kind of limited. So watch out for that. Hold those spears for the black scout maneuvers. And it does also gain you anger. The one thing that you have to look out for this card is if your opponent doesn't have a target in play, you're going to have to target your own drills or own attached cards in play. So you do want to be careful when you tutor this to your hand. And sometimes I'll find myself activating the when entering combat mastery ability to discard it from my hand if I want to go aggressive early. And that's another advantage of this mastery is, if you draw maybe a suboptimal hand, maybe you like 2 of the cards, you can still go aggressive early game by using the draw discard when entering combat. Great card, A+, 10 out of 10, makes Trunks tier 1. So moving on here, we have 3 dashing sword attacks, of course. This is, again, bread and butter. It is amazing. It has anti-anger, 2-stage lower on there. Great for just getting the opponent to 0 to really maximize your AT damage. And of course, it does have an amazing hit effect as well, that you get a sword card from your discard pile and tutor it to your hand. A sword attack card, I think. Yeah, sword attack, right? Oh no, any styled or named card with sword in the title. So you can even get a block, one of the blocks that we'll go over later with this card. So it has multiple uses, and you should really covet these. Like you should not blow these early. Don't just throw these randomly. Make sure you maximize their potential. You want to make sure that you're tutoring with them. So if you can't tutor with them, oftentimes I'll find myself not using them or discarding and rejuvenating them or something like that. You can always pull them out of your deck with Aggressive Sword Drill. So you want to make sure that when you do blow them, you are maximizing their use. This is a kill card, and I often will tell people that, there's pretty much no card in this deck that I would rather them stop, that I would rather them let through than this card. I want this card to hit more than any other card. Because the damage that it can push out, not only does it do, the 2 stages automatic, it can do about 4 or 5 base damage on its own, but then that tutor, you're adding another 6, 7, or 8 damage to the next attack, or even a block if you need it. Great card, 3 in any sword deck if you're playing it. Next up here, we have like the second best name card in the game, or the second best Trunks name card. Trunks Slam at 3. This is one of the enablers of the deck. Not only is it style, so you get that skip, which is actually very relevant. You can actually do a pretty nasty combo with this card, which I've done several times, which is you block, and then you haven't done a style attack yet with your mastery, and then you slam, activating its ability, making your opponent's next phase pass, but then you also activated the mastery, which would make them skip. So what's actually going to happen is they're going to skip their phase before they even get a chance to pass. Then you're going to go again, do anything. And then in their next actual phase, after the mastery skip, they're going to have to pass. And then you can pass out of combat. So essentially you're getting a free action with no repercussions. It's amazing. I've done it very many times. It will win games. And also this card will win games. You will do it for 6, 7, or 8 damage unpreventable with Aggressive Sword Drill in play. Gain yourself some anger, maybe push up some levels, and then just end combat. The tempo swing with this card is off the charts. It works perfectly with Oppressive Mastery. Do a couple attacks, save that block and slam in your hand, and then just get out of combat. Or just be on the level 2 and just rest assured that you always have a block to activate it. Great card. And of course, going along with the theme of the deck, we got to play 3 of the Gut Kicks. Now, this is like... I've often considered chopping this card, to be honest with you, but it's just too synergistic with the rest of the deck, and that's really where I am with it. It's AT plus 4, which is great, and it's really a combo card that you can use when you can end combat. I'm thinking of dropping it down to 2, to be honest with you, but it's at 3 right now. I may actually drop this down to 2 to add some more endurance into the deck. Again, it's just one of those cards that it just fits so well with the deck. It's hard to take out, even though it doesn't have any endurance. It's such an aggressive card because with it you can chain multiple attacks. You know, you can chain 3 or 4 attacks, and you'll make the opponent very frustrated with this card. So that's why you know it's good. You know it's good because your opponent hates when you play it. So just a solid card that goes with the theme of the deck of just doing a bunch of attacks and ending combat. We got Slap at 3, of course. This card is off the charts in Empowered because it can gain you like 3 to 4 anger. But in this deck, it's still really, really solid because it can actually give you an extra turn or 2 turns of life because you're rejuvenating, you know, 3, 4, maybe even 6 or 7 cards if you happen to do 2 of these. I've played it at 1, I played it at 2, but it always goes back to 3 because of just the longevity that it gives your deck. You know, you'll have those aggressive sword drills. You'll want to get that specific knee bash or maybe that dashing sword attack that was hit for damage earlier, and you'll have no way to get it back in your deck. Well, here you go. It has 1 endurance. It does solid damage at AT plus 3. If you're playing Sword, if you're playing Saiyan Sword, you should have 3 of these in every Saiyan Sword deck. Of course, here going with the theme of drills, we got 3 turning kicks. Now, this card is an A+ card, 10 out of 10 card, probably one of the best Saiyan cards in the game. It's excellent in this deck. It can actually tutor any drill from your discard pile, so you can get aggressive sword drill from your discard pile if you want. But its main use, of course, is to just tutor all the style drills, get those style drills in play, and then do 7 life cards unpreventable. It's a game sealer, especially when you open with it with the Oppressive Mastery, getting that skip, and then just saying, if you take this to the face, the 7 life cards, I may just end combat then, and just get out of dodge and just take a clean 7 off the top of your life deck and then end combat without you being able to retaliate. Excellent card. The use of this is a little bit limited. I wish I had more drill tutors than just this. I find myself not being able to activate the 7 unpreventable very often. The deck doesn't play too many drills, but it is useful enough, and the tutor alone and the 3 endurance is useful enough to make it as a 3 of and never leave this deck. Solid card, A+. Alright, and this is a little bit of a controversial card. Some people don't like this card, but I love it. Shattering Blow, it's a combat ender. This deck plays pretty much all the combat enders it can muster, and Shattering Blow is no exception. It will be especially potent when you can just enter combat, do 2 or 3 attacks, and just throw this out and end combat. You know, do a good 10, 15 maybe damage, and then end combat. It's a bait block, so it's great to bait block for your dashing sword attacks. Again, there is no attack in this deck that I would rather than let through than dashing sword attack. So if they block this, that's fine. I have that dashing sword attack in my hand to then throw. I've often even entered combat with 2 combat enders. Like, let's say I'll have this card and Dragon Ball 7. I'll enter combat, open Shattering Blow, and then if they don't block it, they'll just take some damage, and then I'm out of combat. Sure, fine. But if they do block it, then I have a failsafe in my hand. I could just get out of combat again. It's just a way to keep the pressure on, keep expending their blocks, and just keep them on their toes and keep their stages low. I love this card. If it was any better, it'd be completely overpowered, but it's perfectly balanced here at 2 in the deck. And of course, more bread and butter. We have 3 Saiyan Spin Kicks. If you're playing Saiyan Beats, you need 3 Saiyan Spin Kicks. Chi-Chi Ally sucks. Ox King sucks for some decks, not so much this deck. Mainly it's Chi-Chi Ally and, you know, Goldo, or maybe some other allies out there that you just don't want on the field. There are a bunch of ally decks in the meta right now. So, and the extra anger is nice too if I do want to push up to the level 2 Trunks. The extra anger compounded on the mastery anger will help you actually hit 5 anger, because it's sometimes difficult for this deck to do it. And the anti-anger is nice too. 2 endurance, can't go wrong. We have a single Legendary Strike. I did play this at 3, dropped it to 2, and then inevitably dropped it to 1. And that is a spacing issue. I know this deck needs more anti-anger. I wish I had more anti-anger in here. But this is a really solid card, but I just found myself reducing it for stronger other cards that were more synergistic with the deck. If I do drop Gut Kick down to 2, I would probably add in a second one of these for extra endurance. It's the same damage and anti-anger. So that would be what I may do, but for now, that's the ratio that I have it at. We have a single Saiyan Tracking Blast in here. This is needed for very specific matchups. And in certain matchups, you're going to want to push to the level 2, namely Dragon Ball decks and Ally decks. And in those control matchups, chances are they're going to be playing some de-leveling mechanic, whether it be Neck Beam or Ball 2 or something like that. And de-leveling this deck keeps its drills from 1 to 2, but de-leveling this deck from 2 to 1 will lose you all your drills. So if that happens, you will lose the game because of that. It's kind of sad, and it's happened so many times to me. I've lost, actually, in the Time Chamber tournament, I lost to Wayne because he did just that to me. I was at a complete advantage. I had a board full of drills. I wasn't able to get my Tracking Blast attached, and he de-leveled me and swept my drills, and I lost because of it. So given that, I actually did play this at 2 for a while in this deck, but I dropped it down to 1 just for spacing. But I wouldn't knock you for playing more than one of these in a heavy control meta. Just needed in this deck for certain matchups. And of course, we got 2 Blinding Energy moves, again going with the theme of skip, 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 end combat, skip, 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 end combat. That's what this deck does. So of course, you're going to be playing the 2 Blinding Energy moves. It does also help in certain matchups just to control combat. Certain aggressive matchups will go very heavy aggro on this deck before it's had a chance to set up, before it has some drills in play. So it's nice to just draw into a Blinding Energy move and really just cut them off at their knees and not allow them to push a ton of advantage in one combat. Just perfectly goes with the theme of the deck. And a recent add, but it's tried and true, and just an A+ card. 3 Saiyan Burst, 3 Endurance, can't go wrong. This is in here solely for anti-anger, and the extra anger does help as well to, again, push you up to level 2 in certain matchups when you want to. But mainly this card is in here for the 3 Endurance, the anti-anger, and the targeted rejuve is actually very useful. And we'll go over, obviously this deck plays Menace, so it can help you trigger your Menace. And just a targeted rejuve will help you in general, because if you need, one sword card, say you need that Sword Strike back in your deck, or you want to put Slap back in and hopefully rejuve 4 more cards, just that targeted rejuve, it's been such a good help in this deck. And after playing this and trying this in the Time Chamber tournament, I know this was a perfect add, and I know at that point that this list was kind of where I wanted it to be, so that's why I'm making this deck video for you guys. So yeah, Saiyan Burst in most Saiyan decks. That's it for the attacks, guys, so now let's go over the events and blocks. Now let's go over the events and blocks. So to start out here, we have Saiyan Rescue. This doesn't really fit the theme of the deck too much. It's only in here for Menace. Simply put, only. Because it's kind of clunky to use with the whole sequence of skip, 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 and combat. You're not going to find yourself activating Rescue that much unless, of course, you can't get out of combat. Which, if you're attacking and you're not able to get out of combat, chances are you're not doing very well. So Rescue is in here, though, to enable the Menace loop, pseudo-Menace loop, that not only that Rescue can do, but also the level 1 can do, because whenever you play a sword card, you rejuvenate 1. So if you can actually manage to loop Menace maybe 3 to 4 times per combat if you get kind of rolling with it. And you feel like in that, now granted, you're going to have to do special sequencing with that and kind of interrupt your attacks with Menaces and then hope your opponent isn't doing damage to you. It's a little difficult to pull off, but in certain matchups, it will win you the game, and that's why Rescue is in here. Not only that, but we do play 2 of the overpowered aura drills, so I wanted more than 1 attached tutor, just in case, we play 2 of them, so we can make the full use of the attached card tutor. So Rescue is in here for Menace. Likewise, we have 3 Heroic Energy Spheres, the nice, awesome sauce proxy ones. This is in here. This is needed in the current meta. 3 spheres. I have considered dropping this down to 2 because of the nature of the deck. Because I have the ability to end combat after my opponent times the Warrior's Tool. There are many cards in this deck that can just end combat and not have to worry so much about that. So I have considered dropping it down to 2 spheres. And you'll also see that there is no confrontation in this deck, and that is just because of the clunkiness of having confrontation in your hand. You want to open with it, but if you open with it, you're allowing your opponent to get an action. And this deck doesn't really want the opponent to have that ability. it just wants to do a bunch of attacks and then end combat. So I felt that a 3-sphere was much more valuable than any confrontations. So, and then going on with the blocks here, we have 3 of your reverse catches. Excellent card in oppressive decks. It's going to make your opponent skip, give you anger or stages, and then just allow you to continue the train. This again combos with the slam. So if you have already opened with a style attack, and you have block this and slam in your hand, you can block with this, make your opponent skip his next action, slam, make your opponent pass in his next action. So they skip, you act, then they pass, then you can pass out of combat. It is just a crazy combo, and with 2 endurance, why wouldn't you play 3 of these? Of course, we have 3 foil Saiyan sword dodges. Thank you, Azareth. And these are just such good blocks. They're so good, and they can tutor out any sword card. So if you want to go aggressive and get a dashing sword attack, go for it. If you want to go a little bit more control-y and grab a knee bash or a sword slash, go for it. This I find myself often tutoring these with aggressive sword drill because I know that if I draw dead, like if I draw a Menace or if I draw a drill in my hand and I want an attack card, an actual usable card, chances are 9 times out of 10 decks play physical attacks, more physical attacks than energy. Only certain decks can get away with going full energy or something like that. And so this is just a solid card to always pick with aggressive sword drill. And it's won me several games, just the combos that you can do with it. The other cool thing is that it does rejuvenate a card. So if you manage to the Menace loop is much easier to do with this card. You can Menace and then block with this, rejuvenate, put Menace back in play, discard a card, get another sword card Menace. Just start to go crazy combos. It's great. So 3 of these, even though it doesn't have endurance, it's perfect. And we only run 2 hard energy blocks in here, 2 of the energy releases. Again, same thing here with the things you can do with Slam, and it has 2 endurance. But again, the reason that you can get away with only having 2 energy blocks in this deck is because of the tempo that this deck has. It has a massive amount of stage pressure. Not only are you generating 2 to 3 physical attacks a turn before they get the chance to act, so unless they have a wall of blocks, chances are you're going to be hitting them to 0. And likewise, you have the crit to clean up allies, you have the spin kicks to clean up allies, you have the menaces to clean up allies, and then likewise you have the oppressive mastery to lower stages, dashing sword attack to lower stages, menaces to lower stages. This deck can stage lock easier than almost any other deck. Probably only Empowered Trunks would be better at stage locking, just because that deck focuses a little bit more on menace than this one does. But yeah, the stage lock of this deck is real, and so because of that, you don't need that many energy blocks. You can get away with just these 2. And of course, time is a warrior's tool. Yeah, why wouldn't you? So that's it for the events and blocks, and now let's go over the planning cards. So now let's go over the planning cards. Start out here with the only freestyle drills we have in the deck. We have 3 aggressive sword drills, and I've had a lot of people ask me why I run 3 of these, why I don't run quickness drill, and let me tell you, I would love to run quickness drill. It's an excellent card, but I like the 3 aggressive sword drills because often what will happen is if you play 2 of these, you'll tutor out both of them, and then your opponent will ball 4 and get rid of both of these, and then that will kind of just really put a wrench in what you're trying to do. You want one of these drills out always, so I find myself just tutoring them out, just rapid fire every combat until I have 3 of them in play. Because if you have 3 of them in play, it's very difficult for your opponent to multi-remove, like maybe Red Observation or other things can do it, but there aren't that many effects in the game. Even Overwhelming Power, like we'll get rid of 2 of them, so you'll still have the 1. And that's why we play 3. Another drill that I considered, and of course a big portion of this drill that people often overlook, is the unpreventable damage. Never forget that. So many games have I won with the unpreventable damage. Never ever forget that. And likewise, you might also wonder why I don't play Hidden Power Drill in this deck, and that simply put is because of I put so much pressure on this deck, on the opponent, that I never felt that capping them at 5 stages would help me. And I actually felt that it would hurt me because it sets your AT chart to B. So you go from a maximum of D to B. You're losing 2 brackets, and that's just too much. It's good on a level 2, because you're in D and you're only losing one bracket. But on the level 1, which is primarily what level you're going to be playing on with this deck, it's 2 brackets, and being in B for a physical beats deck is just not good. You need to be in that D, and the Oppressive Mastery also helps with that, with the stage gain. So if I played the Hidden Power Drill, I'd be kind of counteracting my Mastery by not allowing myself to get the stages. Sometimes you don't want to get the anger. So the stages are the only option, and keeping yourself at full is really important. And only having 5 stages, likewise, with a few energy attacks, the Dashing Swords, and the Sword Slashes that we run in this deck, you'll reduce your stages even more. And I didn't feel like it would be a good idea for us to cap us at 5. Although it does make sense for the deck, I didn't feel like I needed it. So that's the only freestyle drill we play. And then, of course, we play a single copy of the Saiyan Swift Sword Drill. This is a new recent drill, and it's a very good drill. It will allow you to double up on a Chunk Sword Slash or a Trunks Knee Bash. Very strong. I don't find myself activating the lower stage for extra damage too often, because I find that maybe I'll drop myself a bracket and lose a damage anyway, or I'm facing like a future Gohan or Goku and the extra life card won't be added, and things like that. So this is a really solid drill for the extra, remain on the sword attack. But it often doesn't line up. It's very difficult for this deck to actually tutor style drills in play, and this would not be my first drill that I would get in play. The first drill that I would get in play is actually Suppressive Drill, which is pretty much the most amazing Saiyan drill. I mean, this drill is going to add so much damage to your attacks. Every time you skip, they're going to be milling 1 card. And then even further than that, their PUR, everyone's PUR is only 1. So you are just going to completely drain them down, like ultimately vampirically drain them down, and they are not going to be able to do anything with 1 stage. You're going to be able to get your 2 stages every time you skip with the Mastery. They're only getting 1 stage, and they're going to be crying that every time you attack them, you're going to be milling a card off their deck. I've played attrition decks like blue, protective decks that will wall against you, and just getting this drill out in the beginning of the game will win you the game. Simply put, I played this drill at 2 for the longest time. I dropped it down to 1 just for space. But if there is 1 card in this deck that I would add in a second copy of, it is this card. I really want to find room for a second copy of it. I probably will, but for now it's at 1. Now, the style drill that we do play 2 of, however, is Overpowered Aura Drill. And for that is because of the endurance, because I know that anti-anger is so important in the meta, just in general. I mean, I know Retribution is left, but the thing is, if my opponent is leveling, they're getting 10 stages, and then that's gonna put a damper on my damage in a big way. So I want to get this drill out as fast as possible. It combos with the level 1. I rejuvenate every sword card I play gains lower their anger 1. Likewise, it's great for getting Tracking Blast out in certain matchups and Rescue in the other matchups just for the control in combat. So just an excellent card, and at 3 endurance, why wouldn't I play 2 of it? Rounding out here with the final planning cards, we have 2 Menaces. I did play, it's just too good with the combo with the level 1. And then likewise, just allies being such a big wall against this deck. If they have too many stages to work with, with Stylish Pose being so prominent right now, if they have too many stages, this deck does no damage. This deck has very little damage modifiers. It requires them to be at 0. So for that, Menace is needed. I tried it at 1. It wasn't enough at 1. In certain matchups, I found myself digging in my deck for it. So I knew I needed a second one, so that's why I found room and made room for 2 of them. Excellent card, perfect for Saiyan Trunks. And then the last planning card we have in here is Earthball 7, the single ball that we play. Of course, this is for ending combat. I did try out Ball 2 in here for a while, but I found I was just drawing it when I didn't need it. It did help in certain matchups, and if I played in a meta that I knew was going to be heavy anger, I may add in Ball 2. But Ball 7 is in here. I just built this deck to be aggressive by itself. It has some anti-anger in there, but it's not heavily focused on it. The Ball 7 is just perfect for going aggressive and ending combat whenever you want. I didn't perform as well as I wanted to with this deck at the Time Chamber tournament, and mainly that was because my heart wasn't really in it. I know that this deck is tier 1. I didn't really want to win or top cut in my own tournament. So my heart wasn't in the matches, except against you, Wayne. I don't like losing against EV members, so I tried my best. You were superior, and you beat me there, but yeah. Other than that, all good matches around. I ended, I think, 2-2 in the time chamber with this, and I missed top cut. But I know this deck is not as tier 1, and not only that, this is probably close to the best version of the deck that I would consider. There are only 1 or 2 card choices that I would even consider changing. So if you like aggro, if you like Trunks, and you love the Oppressive Mastery, and you like making the opponent very frustrated in playing you, I suggest trying out this deck. It's extremely fun to play, and you almost feel like a daredevil, because you'll enter combat and you'll almost have nothing in your hand, and you feel like you're like a badass. You're like such a daredevil, because you're like, oh, I'm gonna do this one attack, and if it hits, you're gonna hate me, but if it doesn't hit, then I'm probably gonna lose the game. And it's just very fun. It's a very fun aggro play style, and I love it. It'll take some getting used to for some players. Play it out a few times. I've had some players take this list and go completely undefeated with it. And then I've had other players take this list and they just can't get it. They just can't get it to jive with them, the style of play. So it's something that you got to work on and just feel out as you play games. So thank you for watching this deck profile video. We'll be pushing out tons more deck profile videos. We have the Adept Videl that I'm probably going to push out soon. And we have a Meta X deck profile video that may be up already, which is great, from Nick Glasher, who won the Meta X 2K. So check that out if you haven't seen that yet. And we also have a few fusion profiles that we're going to push out as well. My Trunks combo freestyle sword fusion deck, as well as Nick's Frieza freestyle, which is, I think, a combination crazy energy ball deck. I'm not sure if he plays balls. I think he plays balls, but we're going to have to check out his list, because he did top cut with it, and it's pretty awesome to see Frieza freestyle top cut. So stick around, guys, for next time, and we'll see you.